Hello you lovely lot and welcome to the beautiful Cudmore Fisheries on Drumble Lake yet again. My favourite lake in your wide world, folks, as you know. And we're going to be doing some basics maggot feeder today. Maggot feeder fishing, it's very much overlooked for me, folks, and I absolutely adore it. On those days where, like today, we've got a lily bed around sort of like 25 to 30 metres, island as well. You couldn't get maggots and a waggler out that far. You all know how much I love to fish the waggler, but you couldn't get them out that far, especially if, like today, there's a little bit of wind on, and that's where the maggot feeder really comes into its own. It'll last, obviously, it'll work all year, but particularly from like now all the way through winter until it starts getting a bit warmer again. And it's such a simple way of fishing, but there's a few little tips and tricks that I'm going to show you that will 100% put more fish on the bank for you. So first things first, let's talk through the rod. As I say, I've got a bit of a longer chuck than what I'd normally have, say chucking, you know, like a bomb or a method. So that's why I've gone for an 11-foot rod. 11-foot rod will do you absolutely everything, you know, especially if the wind, you know, the wind's going to get up and you've got to cast it through the wind. 100% recommend getting a slightly longer rod than the normal. So 11 foot, like a bomb or a feeder style rod as well. Reel size, 4,000. It's got to be like a bigger reel. Now that is loaded with 8-pound sinking feeder mono, because the thing with maggot feeder fishing is you're going to catch everything swimming, from like little tiny baby goujons all the way up to carps. Now you need something that's quite robust. I'll always say, obviously, when you're casting lighter wagglers and that, you've got to go lighter mainline. Well, with feeder fishing, you've got to go heavier mainline because of the sort of like the friction of the line for your rod rings. It's got to be nice and robust. So 8-pound, 6-pound minimum, but ideally 8-pound. Tip wise, we have got, I don't ever like to go on the lightest tip, like half an ounce. I've gone on to an ounce tip this time. Again, just so I can really sort of guide that maggot feeder through the air, but also it's going to point exactly where I point that rod. That's where my maggot feeder is going to go. So use a slightly stiffer tip than the normal, folks. Lots of innuendo here. Richard's looking at me funny. I'm not even going to look at you, Richard. Right, let's get down to, in fact, let me unhook that, put that down there, and I'm just going to pay a little bit of line off so I can show you the setup, which is really simple, folks. So cast your minds back to when we did the Ledger Bomb video at Marston Fields. I've set up this exactly the same way. So you can see there, we've got a snap link swivel on that's free running on the main line. Then we've got a large waggler stop, you know, a little float stop. And then again, I've got my 6 inches of twizzle boom there. Just down the bottom here, I've got my loop, and I've got my hook length loop right onto it. So it's such a simple way of fishing. But as always, folks, the reason we do it is because of that, yeah? Because you're not getting any tangles, and it just protects, obviously, the feeder against your line, this twizzle boom here. Coming on to the feeders themselves next, we'll go through hook lengths after that, but the feeders themselves, I'm starting off on a medium feeder today, but obviously if the fish is warm and the fish are really having it, start off on a larger one, get some bait in, and then when it gets colder, obviously they've got these little babby ones here. There's loads and loads of different variations of maggot feeders on the market, this, that and the other. But I like these particular ones, folks, because at the bottom here, if Rich could zoom in on that, they're interchangeable, so I can take them weights off. Now I've got a 15 gram weight on that at the minute, because the wind's not overly strong, but if I wanted to, I could take that off and put a 20 gram weight on, just to cut through that wind. And likewise, I could go even lighter and put like a 10 gram weight on. So really clever idea. So first things first, obviously, that's running on your line. We'll go through our load that up after. Next thing I want to talk you through is this bit here, hook length. I tend to always start off on a 2-foot hook length. Quite heavy as well, 0.16. Now the reason for that, just let me hook that back into my rod again, folks. Oh, we're in a bit of a mess here. Oh, we'll sort that out later. We'll sort that out in a bit, folks. The reason I like to start off on a 2-foot hook length rather than going, you know, a little bit longer, a little bit shorter, is it's that nice sort of like gauge between sort of catching fish through the water and then seeing the bites when obviously the hook length's on the bottom. If the things to watch out for, if I'm not getting bites, I'll go on a longer hook length. So again, it's coming through the water a lot slower. If I'm coming back and my maggot's like been bitten, been snotted and that, then my hook length's too long, so I need to shorten it. When the fish are really having it, you can go real short hook lengths, you know, straight out the packet jobs like your 6-inch ones. But what we've got on today to start off with is that one. If Richard zooms in on that, so 0.16, 2 foot to a size 16 hook, GPMB, and then if I'm not getting as many bites on that to start with, I'll change to a 3 foot hook length, exactly the same again, a little bit lighter, 0.14. But, as I say, if I'm missing bites or I'm getting snotted maggots, that is when I'll come on to one of them bad boys straight out of the packet. I'm fully expecting that to happen today, folks, yeah? I'm fully expecting to have a few casts, get a few fish, and then I'll start missing bites and the fish will be attacking that feeder, so I need to shorten my hook length right up, because although it has gone cold, it's still not like proper cold. So just pay attention to that. Certainly when you're maggot feeder fishing, it does make a difference swapping and changing with your hook lengths. On to the bait next then, folks. Maggot feeder, innit? So we've just got some magpies. Now, you'd be amazed how much bait you can get through. You know, sort of like 5-hour matches before, I've gone through a good sort of 4 or 5 pints of bait, so you can go through it. Bearing in mind, obviously, when we get fishing, I'll talk you through how long or how often, frequently you should be casting. Starting off wise, you want to build that bait up, because obviously it's maggots. There's no real food content in maggots, and the fish, certainly this time of year, when they start feeding up, they'll absolutely gorge on them. That's why I'm starting off on a slightly bigger feeder, like a medium feeder, and I'll be casting like, to start with, every sort of 90 seconds to 2 minutes, so really keep an eye on that. Most of your fish are coming on the drop, but obviously that's something to look for when we actually get fishing. But that's what it's all about, having loads and loads of bait. So I'll be putting bait straight on the hook from obviously them maggots. And also what I like to do as well, folks, now there's a few different ways of doing this, and this is floating magpies. All I like to do is literally just get a handful of magpies out there, that Richard's going to zoom in on, and then just sort of coat them in water. You don't want to cover them so they're under the water. You just sort of like want to coat them so they're like, I don't know, you can't see it there. Rich is going to get some proper zooms on that. The other thing that can work is like fizzy pop, you know. I've used Coke before, I've used Red Bull, because it gives the magpies wings, you know, that kind of thing, you know, get that air into them. But one thing you must do is get an old maggot tub lid and then just cut round the rim. I forgot mine today, folks, but that's all I do. I just literally cut round the rim there. That goes over your box, and then you can go into your maggot box without them crawling out. Because one thing's for sure, when they get a little bit more livelier, then magpies will start crawling out and crawling onto your bait tray. And we don't want that, folks. We want to keep them in the tub. So just cut round one of them. And that's all there is to it. It's so simple, but there's a few sort of like, you know, factors that you need to get right with your maggot feeder fishing. The main one, you can see that I've only got a little babby leg here, folks. Obviously, when you're carp fishing, it's different. You're casting in, you're putting your rod on your rest, and you're waiting for a bite, keeping your hands free. You can't do that with this. So this style of fishing, maggot feeder fishing, or, you know, sort of like traditional feeder fishing, when you're after little fish, little skimmers, little roach, my rod will always be on my knee, and my hand will always be on my reel. Look at the size of the rest. The rest is different to what I normally use as well, yeah? It's a big open rest, and that allows me to almost think it like when you're float fishing and you're lifting and dropping. It's exactly the same with this. So when I cast in, I'll wait for that feeder to settle, I have a nice tight line to my tip, then I'll just drag it. And it'll be, I don't know, it depends on the fish, folks. Sometimes it might be every 15, 20 seconds. Certainly we like aggressive fish, you know, perch, eyed, that kind of thing. Fish that'll actively watch your bait and then go for it. I might be twitching it. Might be twitching my maggot every sort of 15, 20 seconds, folks, but that's all to play for. So things like that, having a big rest and having the rod on your knee, so you're straight into the fish, because the trouble with silverfish, if you've got your hands free and your rod's on your rest like traditional carp fishing, you see that bite, you go for it, that delayed reaction, you will miss a lot of bites. I'm not saying we won't miss bites with this, you know, it's silverfish fishing, we're going to miss the odd one, but 100% you definitely hit more fish if you're in direct contact with your rod all the time. So I think I've waffled enough now, folks. I think we're going to need to go and catch some fishes. So let's go catch some fishes. Here we go then, folks. I cannot wait for this. I absolutely adore maggot feeder fishing. As I said at the start, just looks proper as well. The wind's turned around for us a little bit, it's slightly going off our back, so everything's perfect. One thing I have done though, obviously, is clipped up. Because I'm going for a lily bed, obviously I don't want to just be casting, sort of feathering it down, that kind of thing, yeah, so make sure you clip up first. Island obviously over there, but I'm going to go straight to the lily bed because that's where I think most of the fish are going to be. So we're tucking to islands with longer hook lengths on, folks. Oh, it can be a blooming nightmare. You know, when like you feather the feeder, your bait can sometimes get projected past it and then you end up going squirreling. So we don't want to be doing that today. So first things first, obviously, when we're fishing, you notice obviously we've got a longer rod rest so that when we're twitching that bait, you know, we can keep an eye on that tip, and I've just got a bigger surface area to work with, like I said before, but everything is over my knee. So first things first, we've got our 2 foot hook length on, we'll get baited up. Now you'll see where I've got that maggot feeder, it's not right up there, it's right close, so I can get it with my hand, unclip it and get the magwise in nice and quick, yeah? Very important that. You don't want it too far away, you're just wasting too much time. So, I'm going to try white magwise, you know, to start with. There's a lot of ids in here, folks. A lot of chub, and you know how much I love white magwise for them kind of fish. The other thing I've got as well is a stopwatch, yeah? So important that you have your stopwatch, folks. I only want to be casting. Start off with sort of like 2-minute casts and see what's happening. I'd imagine, obviously, what's happening. Basically, that is going straight down to the bottom, yeah? So your maggot feed is going straight down to the bottom. So let me get that out of my hand. And then basically your hook length with your floating magwise on is coming straight down like that. It's not out to the side, it's coming straight down. So what you've got to do is obviously keep an eye on that tip all the time. You'll see me tighten down to the feeder really quick. But it's this business here. Look at all that slack line you've got. Now, obviously, if we're coming back and our maggot's snotted and we're not seeing the bites, that tells you then that you've got to shorten your hook length up, you know, go a lot shorter. But what I'll do pretty quick, so if you imagine them maggots are there, I'll start moving my feeder every sort of 20, 30 seconds. You know, so 2 or 3 movements, I'm going to eventually get up to where my maggots are over my pile. Sorry, my hook bait is over my pile of maggots in my feeder. I'm waffling, aren't I? But hopefully I'm talking you through what's going to happen. Right, so at this point here, make sure that your hook length is away from anything that it can get hooked in. This can be the worst thing if you've got like keep nets in the way and everything like that, rod rests, they can get blooming caught up in them. So make sure they're well away, my side tray. And then it's a simple case of pulling the lid off, getting your magwise in, we'll fill it with them because obviously we want to get some bait in nice and quick. And then get your hook length again, hold it, and then what I like to do is wind up to sort of 3 or 4 foot, and I'm going to dink that feeder in the water, folks, yeah? You simply must dink that feeder in the water. If you didn't do that, don't give the feeder as much weight, or the maggots as much weight, and your maggots will be flying all over the place. We're still going to lose the odd magway anyway, but not as many. So, dink under the water, wind up to 4 or 5 foot, look to where you're casting to, hit the clip, there we go. Now, you'll see bail arm on straight away, folks, yeah? We've hit the bottom, it's probably like 3.5, 4 foot there. Hit the bottom, and we're going to tighten up to that tip nice and quick. Now, going to start, that sounds wrong, but you know what I mean. Start that stopwatch, that's going. So, nice tight line. My first sort of 20, 30 seconds, I'm just watching. You imagine your floating magwise are falling nice and slow behind the feeder. And then after that 20, 30 seconds, that's when I like to move it. So I'm just going to give it that first movement. There's something on there? No. It can, because obviously we're casting into sort of silt there, so sometimes it can plug into the silt a little bit. Depends on obviously what venue you're on. But you see all the time, I've never got like a real slack tip. I've always got a little bit of a bend in it. More often than not, a lot of this, certainly this style of fishing, you'll catch fish as you move it through, there'll always be one on. But again, that can tell you that your hook length's too long. But one thing that you've got to do, folks, if you're fishing these venues, certainly with a lot of silvers in particular roach, eyed, chub, that kind of thing, you must use a long hook length because obviously they like to feed off the bottom and they will watch your bait down. That's why that bait's got to be going in the column. So we're on a minute so far, folks. I'm going to give it another minute. What's that? That's the third movement I've given it, and I'm moving it sort of 8 or 10 inches at a time. So this next one, my hook bait should be coming over where my little pile of maggots is. Yeah. And all the while, you're just waiting for them little taps. Sometimes they'll just like proper hook themselves. But if it's little fish like roach and what have you, or little babby skimmers, then that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. So you see, I'm in control of my rod, my hands on my rod, and I'm waiting for that bite basically. Yeah, it's not down to the side. I'm waiting for that bite. So right, this movement now, my hook bait should be over me pile of magwise. We've got 15 seconds left on this first chuck. Usually it takes sort of 2 or 3 casts to get the fish going, folks, yeah? Just needs that bit of bait falling through. 8 seconds left. But it's so important. I'm going to give it a little twitch before. Oh, see what I mean about that little twitch before? And we're on 2 minutes now, folks. It's only a little babby fish, but it just shows you, doesn't it? You know what I mean about that little tiny movement? That's when you get your fish. They're watching it, and then they just sort of like seem to have it. Little roach. Oh, it's tiny little fish, but don't matter. We're off. 1 out of 1, folks. 1 out of 1. So a little babby roach to start off with. Not wrong with them, folks. In the bottom lip as well, just where they should be. So you can see I always use back wind, folks. Even though it was a little babby fish, I always use back wind. So if you're using your drag, obviously just make sure that everything's nice and tight, yeah? So first things first, we want to change that bait. So I'm going to put 2 more white magpies on, folks. You know what I mean? Got to be the white magpies. So a couple of floaty white magpies. Oh, incidentally, I didn't talk you through, did I? I found my bloody lid from my little box as well. Yes, so you can see, obviously, the maggots crawling up the sides there, getting them on reshard. Yeah, but obviously they don't come over the rim of the lid. There's one. Yeah, but he's a dead one, Rich. He don't matter him. He's dead, so he's not live. He's not. Yeah, shut up. So again, magpie's in there. Grab the magpie feeder, dink that under the water, wind up so you've got a 4 or 5 foot tail, straight back. I love that noise it makes. There we go. It's just, oh God, it's so good, folks. So again, right, easy at the bottom. Let's start that again. Doink, 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 doink. There we go. Right, tight line, tight line, tight line. So important you've got that tight line, folks, especially when the maggots are falling through the water. That's me, that, yeah? That's still me, that's me. That's me, that's me, that's me. There we go. If it's really smooth bottom and pretty hard, then sometimes your feed is a little bit too light. It will keep dropping back, so you might have to put a little bit more weight on your feeder, but don't need to worry about it today. Right, so that's been in 30 seconds. We're going to give it first little movement now. But again, you can see I've always got that little bit of a bend in my tip. Never like to slackline it with this style of fishing. I always want that sort of like tight bit of line from my feeder to me, obviously to me hook bait, which I won't have yet. I know I won't have yet, because obviously we've got that longer hook length on, that longer tail. So, but experiment on the day, folks, yeah? You know, 20, 30 second movement. Some days they don't want it, but usually with this style of fishing, they do like a movement. They do like to watch it. Either they'll take it as you're moving it, or literally as you've moved it and set the tip back, that's when you get the bite again. But, you know, when it's proper cold and they're not really attacking that bait through the water, you might just have to leave it a little bit. Right, so we're on 1 minute and 20 seconds. Remember, the last fish came just before 2 minutes, so I'll give it another movement. So I'd imagine this next movement that I'll do, my maggots are going to be over my little pile of bait. And if that's what's happening every time, you know, you're not really catching off the twitches, then what I'd do is I'd cast in, let my feeder settle, and then give it instantly sort of like a 2 foot pull, if you like, so that I know that my hook bait's over me pile of bait that's been in my feeder, my maggot's been in my feeder. So we're coming up to 2 minutes now, but this is where you've got to be strict on yourself, folks, yeah, because it's early days. Right, 2 minutes is up. There's one on. There's one on. So obviously that can tell you potentially that your hook length might be that little bit too long, or it might have taken it just as you went to lift out. But then again, another little babby fish. But that's 2 out of 2. Yeah, little fish like that. Little fish like that, 2 out of 2. I might not be moving it as far as I think under the water, but again, that all comes with experimenting on the day. So I'll try 2 reds this time. And the other thing with feeders as well, obviously we've got a medium-sized feeder on at the minute, but it might be that you need to put a large one on. Certainly if you've got a volume of, you know, angry silverfish like ids and what have you, you might need to get more bait in. But one thing is for sure, certainly with this style of fishing, the silvers, you've got to keep that frequency up, folks. You've got to keep that bait going in. Obviously, if you're winter maggot feeder carp fishing, then that's different. That's where you're casting in, obviously you're waiting for them bites. So again, let's start that. Doink, doink, doink. And then get nice and tight onto that. So we've got red magpies on this time. See, that wind's got up a little bit too much, but it's still not moving me feed. I'm still quite happy with that. What I'll do this time though is just twitch that feeder a little bit more than what I have been doing. So that line's sunk already. So I'll give it that first 30 seconds and then I'll twitch it probably about a foot of time this time, rather than sort of like 6 or 8 inches. Here we go, 30 seconds is up, so give it a big foot movement and then come back. Oh, yeah, he's on. So you see what I mean about that little twitch? It's mad, isn't it? I know it's only a little babby fish, folks, but imagine this, like pleasure fishing or even matches, you know, on a freezing cold day. It's just going to keep you warm, and that's the beauty of this style of fishing. It just keeps you warm. It's so good. That's a nice little skimmer. So that come a little bit quicker that time. See, we're not even on a minute. We had that. Could have been because we changed hook baits, or we give it a little bit of a bigger movement. Now, obviously, one thing in particular with skimmers, folks, is watch out for that slime. I'm going to give it one more quick cast, but there's not really much more to go through other than probably the most important one, folks, is just pay attention to how you're hooking the fish. Obviously, every fish we've had so far, they've all been in the lip, you know, bottom lip, top lip, they've all been in the lip. As soon as you start hooking them fish in the bottom, right down the throat, and the proper attacking it, you know, the swallowing that bait, that's when you need to change your hook length, you know, go shorter hook length. Or likewise, if you're, you know, coming back and your maggot's snotted and you're not even seeing the bite, again, going a short hook length. I don't need to do it yet because everything's going right. You know, we've had 3 casts, we've had 3 fish, little babby fish, but who cares? You know, we're getting bites, and that's what it's all about. This style of fishing, certainly, you know, the times of year you be doing it. See, that one's on then. Oh no, that was a liner. That was a liner, that one, folks, and that was like really quick. So sometimes you'll get like proper bites like that. You think, how was that not on? But it's just one of them things, you know. And I could tap that bait on the drop, but I'd imagine that one would have been a liner. Yeah, my bait's not even touched there, folks. So I'm going to give it another one. But it just shows you how much bait you can get through and why you need that volume of bait. Don't forget, even like cold days, fish are not getting filled up on maggots like they will on pellets. It's so good, folks. That noise, isn't that? Oh, it's so good. Right, tighten down to it. Let me set that again. Doink, doink, doink. Here we go. Right, we'll get this one. Get this one. I was convinced that one would be on them, folks, after that bite. Oh. Here we go. I'm just going to wait a little bit longer, make sure he's on. Now, obviously, if that, I'd imagine that would be little babby roach, that little one there. And obviously, they're taking the bait on the drop. So, potentially, we could have a, you know, a chewed maggot or something like that. Potentially. But again, that's another reason why you only give it 2 minutes. If that was constantly the case, again, that would be when you'd, you know, change your hook length. So, I'm going to give it a foot movement again, and then come back. Oh, that nice bend in my tip. And then wait. Oh, I see that one then. So these could be, well, they're not could be, they are, again, smaller fish. Just like we've been catching, little roach skimmers. They're just grabbing the tip of the maggot and not hooking themselves. The bites usually is sort of like them little ding, 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 ding. That's why it's so important that yeah, like that. Here we go. See what I mean? Saw the difference between that one and obviously that little, them quick bites that we had before. Again, only little babby fish, only little babby skimmer. But it just shows you, in one, folks, the effectiveness of maggot feeder fishing. A little tiny bit bigger, but, you know, he's not massive by any standards. No, we're not going to net him. Whoa. But that's what that could have been, folks. That same fish. Yeah, when we're getting them little like that and nothing there, could have been that same fish. But them roach, that's what they'll do to you. But again, see where we're hooking them. Yeah, all around this part of the mouth, bottom lip, top lip. If you carry on hooking them there, you know you're not doing anything wrong. So you don't need to change, you know, your hook length or anything like that. Just stay with it. Just go with it all the time. As soon as you start getting, obviously, lots of missed bites, snotted maggots, hooking fish down a little bit too deep, that's when you change the size of your hook length. But, oh, folks, I hope you enjoyed that. Maggot feeder fishing in a one. It's such an overlooked method, but you've seen how simple it is. The main thing is keep in touch with your hook lengths, keep an eye on what the fish are doing, keep twitching that bait and keep that bait going in. I hope you've enjoyed that, folks, as much as I have. I'm going to carry on and catch loads more. Yeah!